So, a very, very good morning, everyone. And this is Shikha here. Before we start off, I just want to thank you all for being here. And just want to tell you that technology is something, guys, that we have no control over. And in spite of that, I think you all have been very, very patient. So, thank you so much for that. Technology issues can happen either from our platform or from your end, which means that you could have a slow computer or not so great internet connection. So I request all of you who are watching to keep refreshing your screens and clearing cache as and when possible to have a seamless experience of what we're giving you. Exhibitors should be using the quick networking zone to see the list of attendees, and you can text them there. They can send their room links and invite them to their AV rooms. Quick chat is used by attendees to find specific booth representatives only. So this is a quick into how you can have a seamless experience of what we are presenting. And guys, thank you once again for being so patient and enjoy while you're here. So today's panel that we're going to be talking about, Asghar, you can add them in, is the topic is all about brand building, right? Marketing tools and how to leverage it in the best way possible. And I have these lovely ladies here. Hi, Rio. Hi, Ashanti. Hi,
Good
Kanika.
morning.
Hello, morning.
Good morning. So, yes, how are you all doing?
Good, thank you.
Very good this
That
morning, please.
Good,
that's great.
thanks.
That's great. I think we're going to be waiting for Summer as well to join in. So while Summer joins in, I will just give a quick intro about Kanika and I will hand over the stage to her. So Kanika Subaya is the founder of weddingwishlist.com. So with a master's degree from Dartmouth College and MBA from University of Chicago, Kanika is a passionate entrepreneur who thrives in bringing new ideas to life. She spent close to 16 years studying and working in the US and was heading corporate strategy for the Gimboyer Corporation. After moving to Chennai, Kanika started www.weddingswishlist.com with the intent of helping millennials have waste free and socially conscious weddings. I mean, it's a great initiative, and I'm sure we will be also hearing a little more about it from Kanika. Well, Summer is in the room. Asghar, I would request you to add Summer as well. I can see her messages coming in. Summer, you need to give your access to mic and camera. Only then you can join in if you can hear me. Okay, guys. So, Kanika, I will give the stage to you. You can start off while I will just fix the issue with Summer. Looking forward to a great session, guys, and thank you once again for being here.
Good morning. I hope everybody is doing really well this morning and that your weekend is off to a lovely start. Before I begin, I would just like to welcome, or maybe I will wait for Summer to join, but let me just start then by giving a quick introduction. So first of all, a big hello to everybody joining us today. And thank you to Espousal and Zero in Management for creating this platform for professionals from the wedding industry to interact on topics that were always important, but have really become top of mind in recent times. Thank you for having me as your moderator for this panel discussion. My name, as Shikha said, is Kanika Subaya. I'm the founder. Before I introduce the panel, I'm just going to quickly give you some context on what I do. I'm the founder of weddingwishlist.com, which is India's leading tech platform to help prospective couples plan smart, waste-free weddings. And as Summer said, as Shikha said, I was studying in the US for 16 years. And when after living there for that long, when I came back to India, I made a few startling observations. The one being that Indians attend a lot of weddings all their lives, and that there's a massive wastage in nearly all Indian weddings. And even though our weddings are large and could easily set up the couple for their life ahead, there exists a huge gap between gifts that couples desire and those that they actually receive. So central to the Wedding Wishlist platform is Gift Registry, which ensures that every gift the couple receives is treasured and that no gift need be regifted. This then is complemented by a portfolio of services like wedding websites, digital and video invites, and most recently, virtual solutions to ensure that online guests feel as involved in the wedding as physical guests. So most recently, one of our brides got married in Hyderabad with her parents in Australia, friends in France, and family scattered all over. A tech platform offering registry and virtual solutions allowed all these guests to join, bless the couple, and celebrate with them. So times are definitely changing. Thank you to our esteemed panel members who've all founded successful media and event planning platforms around the world. Shikha, should I just go ahead and give a quick introduction since?
Yes, intro for summer is what you're asking?
Yeah, so should I go ahead and introduce the panel, or would you like to do that?
No, it's all yours, Kanika. Please introduce the panel.
Okay, so first I'd like to introduce Rio Downey, who is on your screen. You should be able to see her. Rio is had many years within events and media and industry background. She is the founder of a couple of wedding platforms, brideclubme.com in Dubai, as well as a matchmaking platform that is more recent. And broadly, their services are wedding planning, a concierge service of sort, matching vendors and venues to couples by budget. And of course, they are focused on destination weddings particularly. And I think that in the time that Rio has been running this business, there's been a perceptible increase in the Dubai destination wedding business. So very happy to have you here, Rio, and looking forward to a nice discussion. I'd like to introduce Ashanti, who is also on the screen. So she is the founder of Event Mind, as well as a couple of other platforms. What I found most interesting about Ashanti was that she made a natural pivot, which a lot of companies are doing now in recent COVID times. But she made a pivot from Venue, which was a coffee business, to a virtual events business, and it just happened to coincide with the timing of COVID. It was not in response to COVID, and I think we'll find that Ashanti will have a really interesting perspective to contribute to the panel this morning.
Thank you for having me.
And though I don't see Summer on the screen, I'm also going to go ahead and introduce Summer. Summer Shwareb from Jordan. She has founded Arabia Weddings, has had 30 years of experience in events and wedding planning, and has, done a number of different sorts of events, corporate, bridal, and otherwise. So looking forward to having Summer as well. Shikha, is Summer also in the room? I don't see her.
I think she's having tech issues. She's trying. She might just pop in at some point.
Should we just go ahead and start then?
Yeah, she said, please continue.
Yes.
Okay. So just for the benefit of people who are joining us, the audience that's joining us, I'm going to focus on 3 topics. Broadly, even though this is a much spoken about topic, but we'll start with COVID impact and the innovations as a result of it, marketing tools and strategies, and of course, digital marketing best practices. If anyone in the audience has a question at any point, please type it in the chat box and we'll do our best to address it. With that, let's get started. So we know that nearly every industry has been impacted by COVID, and wedding industry particularly so. So both Rio and Ashanti wanted to ask you how have your business has been impacted, given that they are largely event focused, and what have you done to ensure that you are still able to function?
Who would you like to go first?
Rio, why don't you start?
Okay, sure. So thanks again for having me, Espousal, on your panel. Thanks, Kanika, for moderating. Nice to meet you, Ashanti, and nice to meet everybody joining us today. So yeah, I mean, just to kind of reiterate and expand on what Kanika said, I run brideclubame.com, and it's the region's leading wedding inspiration website and concierge based in the UAE. So we primarily help couples in the UAE, but we also help destination brides who are planning weddings here in the UAE and brides here planning weddings outside of the UAE. I also have a B2B business called Bride Club Business, where we help entrepreneurs, wedding entrepreneurs, and I also co-found a marriage proposal planning company. So yes, to answer your question, my businesses have been greatly impacted by the global health crisis. Well, I mean, not naturally, but the first industry to be shut down was weddings and events. The last industry to come back is weddings and events. In the UAE, weddings still cannot happen. And actually, we had an announcement by the government 2 days ago, which attributed a sharp rise in cases to underground weddings that were happening. So it's not looking good here. So yes, it's had a massive impact on my business. However, brides are still using the website. We're still putting content out. I have been organizing virtual kind of wedding networking sessions within the industry. I have been setting up private Facebook groups for us all to kind of discuss what's going on, support each other. I've had specialist speakers come on and help people in the industry understand how they can pivot their businesses in the interim, which I think is really important. I mean, that word's really annoying me now, pivot, but adapt, you know. We've seen some great innovations here in the UAE. We've seen, you know, wedding florists who specialize in wedding flowers transcend into gifting Thursday, so specializing in home flowers and gifting. Because in this time, I found people to be really giving of themselves, and a lot of people are kind of sending gifts to each other and things like that. There have been wedding planners that have pivoted into children's parties, but just for the one child, you know, so sending singing performers to their door with balloons and things like that. So yes, it's been stressful. Yes, it's impacted my business, but I'm still putting content out there. And I have other businesses that are bringing in revenue, thank God. So my one piece of advice is don't have all your eggs in one basket. Try and have your fingers in a few.
Great. Thanks so much, Rio. Ashanti, and welcome, Summer. She's just joined us.
Thank you.
In Accenture, I took the liberty of introducing you to the audience. And we are just talking about how you have felt the negative impact of COVID on your business. So if I may, maybe I'll ask Ashanti to go next and just share a little perspective on your business as well. And then we'll move on to Summer.
Yes, thank you. I mean, to be honest, I always love being around other entrepreneurs, and this is brilliant. Just hearing Rio speak about, as soon as she mentioned multiple streams of income, that is the name of the game, plus some resilience as well. And I think probably, again, my businesses are largely events-based. We had a coffee shop, quite a large coffee shop, and most of that business was made up of events, essentially. And so, yes, I would definitely say, in terms of negative impact, we're probably a little bit unique in the sense that what we've had to do is really adapt to what our potential customers and clients are experiencing. So most of our business was in digital events anyway. So for about 5 years, we've been teaching organizations how to sell via live stream and digital events. And so we were kind of well poised for this crisis. However, as you can imagine, you have to be far more consultative now in the way that you work with clients. And sometimes there's a longer lead time. So you may have been able to convert a client much quicker in times past, but at the moment, because of how consultative you need to be, because of how uncertain times are, your clients are often still working out budget issues, still working out how to actually adapt. There's the education piece when it comes to understanding technology, understanding digital marketing and its potential. So I'd say the impact has been, you have to be far more consultative and really go the extra mile to provide that service and to take your client along with you. So that's the impact, so to speak, it's had on us as a team, in that we've really just stepped up to the plate. A lot of things that were quite basic to us, we spend time training our clients on, because the overall competence, understanding and awareness of technology, of digital marketing, of event technology, like the pieces that we're using for this particular panel, is not there yet. So quite varied, but I think resilience is the key, and also creating multiple opportunities for income.
Thanks so much, Ashanti. And Summer, if we can have some perspective from you as well.
Well, definitely we've been affected, like most of the wedding businesses around this region, or maybe around the world. We've been affected, I think, in two main areas. One is that we've definitely witnessed a lower number of visitors from the brides and the grooms who visit our website, especially between April and June. And of course, the revenue stream, of course, has also been affected. Our business model is based on subscriptions by the wedding industry. So it is understandable that both of these, two different aspects of our business have been affected. But since July, we've started seeing an increase in the number of our visitors, because people were more hopeful with, at the end of the full lockdown, that weddings are going to come on stream. So they started more, asking, or actually like looking for wedding venues and wanting us to connect them with wedding vendors, etc., etc. But unfortunately, the wedding industry at large in this region is still not like 10% of whatever it was in the past. It's only very, very tiny weddings that are taking place in Saudi Arabia, in the UAE, in Lebanon, in Jordan, around these markets. And unfortunately, we don't know when the wedding industry is going to open. So this is basically the situation. But what we've been doing basically is that we've kept our focus on the platform. We did not try to look for other revenue streams. We are very committed to enhancing our platform, to improving our services, to take advantage of this present times and the situation to make improvements and enhancements to the business. So hopefully, when things are back on track, the platform is ready to grow and expand and do whatever we wanted to do as a business platform, serving both ends of the industry, the brides and the grooms on one side, and the wedding industry. So hopefully we're able to weather the storm if it doesn't last for too long, and then hopefully we come out of that stronger than before.
Great. Thank you, Summer. I think that's absolutely right. Like, a focus on platform is a good way to keep yourself engaged and also prepare for what is to come, which is incidentally a very similar approach to what we've taken at Wedding Wishlist, because we've also basically said, okay, how can we use our time best? And on the one hand, we've been enhancing the platform with adding charity gifting and various sorts of additions to the registry. And on the other hand, collaboration, which is also, like, I feel a very important aspect of growing and maintaining our businesses, because particularly at times like this, companies are quite keen on collaborating, particularly if it's with good partners. So I'd love to explore a little bit more on these lines, and basically say, with the ultimate goal of reaching, everybody wants to reach through their marketing their customers. And the customers are very keen on maintaining social distance. So the traditional marketing channels are therefore a bit challenging to explore. And digital is very much the only option to reach customers. So how have you, in your markets and your businesses, embraced digital? And what kind of marketing strategies are you using to sort of invest in the growth of your businesses? Maybe we can again start. Summer, since you are there, why don't you start on this and we'll go backwards?
Sure. Well, actually, I think that the current situation is helping accelerate the digital transformation in the wedding industry across the board. So this is probably one of the positive outcomes I see of the current situation, is everybody is going digital, and there are so many digital tools now available to help the industry grow and expand. Especially, we've seen a lot of companies going into e-commerce, and these are basically companies that offer products rather than services. The use of the internet has skyrocketed, I think, in the past few months. So let's take advantage of that. For us, digital marketing has always been a mix of so many different digital assets or elements or tools. Social media marketing is just one of them. So basically, we just continue to post and on Facebook, Instagram. These are our two main channels. We do use other platforms, but Instagram and Facebook are the most used, especially Facebook, especially in Saudi Arabia and UAE. So it is the whole digital mix that we've kept on using, and that I advise everybody to use. Social media is one element. The other elements are, of course, the website and the platforms. So we need to do a lot in terms of SEO, SEM. So anyone who's not really familiar, or the small and medium-sized companies in the industry who are not familiar with SEO, really need to optimize their websites. That's a very important source of acquiring new customers in the sort of new digital era. E-marketing is very important. It's part of our mix. SEO, SEM, as I mentioned. So basically, we've kept doing all of that. We might have changed a little bit with the formula. We're more focused on SEO than ever before. So we've done tons of research on keywords in all the different markets in the two languages that our platform addresses, and that's basically is our marketing strategy. We're doing more in terms of e-marketing. So we're enhancing our database of e-newsletters of email addresses, I meant, and we're splitting it up in a more meaningful way, between the different age groups and the target groups and the emails and B2B and B2C and all of that, which we believe at this point of time is very important and relevant.
Great. And before we move to Shanti, I also wanted to add one more aspect. When you, Rio and Shanti, when you address the same question, is if you could also speak a little bit about content, because particularly at times like this, we have to give a lot of importance to content, but at the same time, the customer is inundated with content. There is so much content out there. So when you talk about digital marketing, could you also speak about the significance of content and how you differentiate yours so as to add value to the customer? Shanti?
Thank you for that question. And yes, so ironically, all of the things that Samar mentioned about having a marketing mix, I think that is really important. And EventMind, we use content as our principal type or format of marketing, and then we do run it through social media. But also, I specifically have used speaking. So I've probably spent maybe 90% of my time this year speaking on panels in virtual events all around the world so that we can reach audiences and potential clients. So that is a strong form of content. People are getting to know you positioning yourself as a thought leader, as experts in digital events. So I would definitely suggest to people, if you're happy to, you're able to, go out there and talk about your business, talk about your expertise, your subject expertise, and make sure that you're in front of as many potential customers as possible, because that is a really good long-term strategy. You may not necessarily see immediate leads, but what happens as time goes on is as you continue to show up and stay hyper visible with your content. So whether it's speaking like us, we use podcasting, we use speaking, and we also have run a number of training webinars. And we've done that regularly. So those are the three types, I'd say, of content that EventMind uses: speaking, podcasting, and webinars that are of a training nature. And that's how we've really been able to carve out a niche. So just very briefly, you'll know most people watching this will have tuned into countless virtual events over the last year or since the beginning of the year. Now, everybody is talking about virtual events, sometimes hybrid events now. That's a buzzword coming in. And lots of people are talking about event technology, so virtual event platforms. But how we differentiated ourselves at EventMind was by talking about how you use the technology. So that slight difference. So where other digital event companies were talking about monetizing, marketing virtual events, we kind of zigged when everyone was zagging. And so we talk about how you use the technology. How do you choose the right technology, and how do you use that technology well? And that kind of content really started to set us apart. So when you add in having some valuable, useful content that isn't just the same as what everybody else maybe in your sector is talking about, and then you keep consistent and hyper visible through podcasting, speaking, and as I say, training webinars, where we collaborated with platforms, where we collaborated with event agencies to reach bigger audiences. That's what really helped us in the digital marketing space since COVID began.
That's wonderful. I think that there were a lot of hidden gems in that answer. Thanks, Shanti. And Rio, maybe hear from you also on your. You are very content led as well. I did a little research on a number of your writings, and I think a lot of your blog content that you've shared is very inspiring as well. So go ahead and share your perspective as well.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of reiterate what both Samar and Ashanti said, I mean, I kind of don't want to repeat everything, but everything they've said, 100% I agree with. Focus on the SEO, the content, moving into virtual, etc. But what I have been doing is I've really been focusing on my personal brand during this time. And very much like Ashanti, speaking broadly across a lot of seminars, webinars. I have tried to restrict the amount of virtual events Bride Club Emmy are doing, because I found that some people were experiencing overdose of, Zoom events and things like that. And one thing at Bride Club Emmy that I have always pushed and championed is heart and soul. So yes, we're a traditional media platform, but I feel like we're a bit of a heartbeat, because I'm quite, I put myself out there quite a lot, and I'm really focused on the UAE, even though people have tried to convince me to go, expand and everything like that. So the content that I put out there is I really try and zone in on the psychology of the bride and the industry. So I'll have little private kind of meetings that aren't public, where we can really talk about topics that maybe people don't want to talk about in the public eye. And I really want to show my community that I'm there for them. Right now, I'm holding hands a lot. I'm a lot more physically involved in my business than I ever have been, even though I'm earning the least I ever have been. I'm holding the hands of the brides a lot, and I'm not a wedding planner, I'm a connector. So I think that's really served us well, because organically people, I mean, yes, technology is important, but organically people are talking about us more than ever now, on Facebook platforms, and, you should speak to Rio, or you should visit Bride Club. And yes, technology is important, but I've really been focusing on that kind of heart-led connection with people during this time as well. So, but don't get lazy, and don't, just because things might be tough, don't neglect your social media, don't neglect your platforms. Use this time to write blog content. If you're a wedding industry professional, like a planner, wedding florist, photographer, use this time to create content. Top 10 ideal desert spaces in the UAE to take engagement photo shoots, or something like that. think about what people are going to be searching for. Intimate restaurant. Like, are you a venue, wedding venue? Do you want to attract small intimate weddings? Put content out there relevant to people who are going to be searching that on on Google. So use this time effectively, where you would normally be completely wiped off your feet trying to organize these huge events. Now you can focus on the things that you probably neglected before, like your SEO, your social media, your content calendars, etc. And for me, Ashanti, I need to talk to you because I need to learn more about using technology platforms, So,
but yeah, I think Rio, you said some really important things there. You talked about being heart-led. And I think that's that thing about being consultative now. You actually have to care. And you have to show your clients that you care, even if they're not buying from you right now. Because what happens is after, and we keep saying after, this is going to continue and just evolve. I don't think there'll ever be a date where we think, oh, COVID's over now. We're going to have to get used to and keep adapting to the climate. But what happens is people remember who was there. And this is true even in B2B business, right? If you disappeared or if you weren't helpful or didn't go the extra mile now, if things do improve for your clients, whether they're existing or prospective, they won't spend their money with you because you didn't show up for them. And I think if you want to be a leading company, leaders don't hide in a crisis. You have to stay, you have to show up, and you have to be consistent. And that way you keep that trust that you should have, hopefully, with your network, with your communities, so that when people are buying again, you are definitely one of the people that they want to buy from.
100% agree. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that is a huge takeaway, because what better way to invest your and your team's time than to actually establish some connects that are going to remain when the business starts to pick back up. Like in India as well, we saw that March, April, May, pretty much there were no weddings. And then I think when couples started to realize that this is not going away anytime soon, we started to see them coming back and either opt for small weddings because we have a 50% limit, or basically postpone their weddings to the end of the year and be in a planning mode. And so we are now seeing, weddings happen. And in fact, like talking about some aha moments, we've all been thinking, oh no, weddings are at a standstill, but we also realized that actually it's also an opportunity for many. So we've definitely seen couples where they've said, I always wanted a small wedding, but my parents would not hear of it because a small wedding in India is like 500 people. So they said, perfect. Now we can have a 50-person wedding and have all the rest of the guests participate virtually or whatever. So I think like one also must look out for these aha sort of moments or insights that can help us along. I wanted to slightly shift from content and marketing to virtual events. Similar to as with content, virtual events as well, there are so many. There are like thousands, tens of thousands a day. In fact, there was a meme that went viral recently where it is a king, an Indian king, who's shaking his wife awake and saying, "You can wake up now, the webinar is over." So I think that my question is, maybe we could start with Samar or Ashanti, is to say, how do you, and this is perfect platform for this, because we are talking at a wedding, an online wedding expo, which is really a first of its kind as well. But how does one ensure that, like your content, the virtual event also is a success and not a write-off, and actually adds value to the customer and differentiates from the tens of thousands of virtual events that are happening online all the time? Ashanti, do you want to run a lot of events? Shall we start with you?
Yeah, sure. So we developed a framework at EventMind called the Virtual Profit Framework. And basically, what we did is we studied digital events over the last 5 years, but specifically the ones that have been happening since COVID. And there are 4 key pillars to any good virtual event. And we use the word virtual. I hate using the word virtual all the time because really these are digital events, right? Okay, but Virtual Profit Framework. And the 4 key pillars to a virtual event that you can profit from in some kind of way. So that could be monetary, or indeed in terms of lead generation, building platform and community, or of course, being able to sell something. So the 4 key pillars are collaboration. We found that companies who have collaborated with one or more other companies that are complementary to the service that they offer, and more importantly, useful to the people that they're inviting to the virtual event, have really seen some success. So the first one is collaboration. The second one is community. Very much like what Rio was saying, you have to create community either in the pre-event marketing and activity, but also during the event. So, for example, an event like this, Espousal created a WhatsApp group, right? That was a way of creating community and allowed for collaboration. This whole session is community, right? We're all speaking from around the world about how we survive this period of time. So that's the second thing, create community, because where you have community, there are resources, there is trust, and there is potential business. The third thing that is key when it comes to a successful virtual event is creativity. And this, again, is another example of that. Weddings really, most people thought could not happen unless they were in person. If you'd asked people a year ago, this would be not something that would be considered an online event of this kind. And yet here we are. So sometimes we have to be creative. So that's the third thing. And then, of course, the fourth thing, you guys know what I'm going to say, is content. You have to have something that is super useful to that audience. Now, what I really would suggest is people finding a niche. And I think, Rio, you did touch on this, right? What's your thing? And so for us, we talk about how to choose the right technology and how to use that technology properly. That is a niche. What that means, though, is that not everybody is interested in that topic. So potentially our audience is much smaller, but because it is super niche, the interaction we have is very deep. It's quite intense. And so that's really useful for us because we are attracting our ideal clients at the end of the day. So that's the 4 things to that virtual profit framework. I've gone through it really quickly, but it's community, collaboration, creativity, and then content. And what tends to happen for virtual events that aren't as successful as the organizers intended, usually it's one of those 4 things that was missing, is the reality. No matter what happens, if you go back to that framework, you'll be able to identify that maybe you didn't do one or more of those things so well, especially in the pre-marketing stages.
That's fantastic. Would Summer, would you like to add something to that?
Yes, very interesting, Ashanti. Your 4C is just, yes, on the spot. I just want to take this step backwards and try and identify, when you want to organize an event, whether it is a physical event or if it's a virtual event, what basically are we trying to achieve? If it's a bridal show, if it's a wedding show, whether it's virtual or physical, basically, what the bride is looking for are certain number of things that she wants to visit a wedding show basically to achieve. Are there any new trends in the market that I need to learn about? Are there any new suppliers in the market that I need to know of and meet? Are there any special deals and promotions that I need to grab perhaps within these 3 days of the event that will help me save on my wedding budget? Are there any fashion shows that I'd like to attend and learn? Are there any brides that I need to connect with perhaps and share some information from? Or are there any information sessions that I want to attend to learn from? So when we just go back to basics and identify what a trade show is basically all about, it becomes a lot easier to transfer this experience virtually. So when we want to address to create a wedding show virtually, we have to address these topics. So who do we bring along onto this platform to offer all of these insights and inspiration and knowledge and deals and to the bride? And I think if we're able to satisfy all the needs and the requirements of the brides who come to the exhibition once a year, perhaps. If we can do that virtually, then definitely we've ticked all the boxes and produced a great virtual event.
Right on. Rio? I think you're on mute, Rio.
Sorry. I've been approached by quite a few different kind of virtual events, exhibitions, webinars, seminars, and I'll be very honest with you, I do get a bit micromanagey and bossy with them and say, have you done this? That is not even my event. And I find that I feel as though sometimes the marketing process in the lead up to the event is ignored and just the event itself is the focus, which I think is a massive mistake. Because especially if you're putting on an event and your actual target is brides, but all the content is B2B. Brides are not going to be interested in that. So have a clear kind of strategy, as in, you know, is this a B2B event or is this a B2C event, or is it a bit of both? And then have your marketing on point. So you must enlist the help of media partners, which I find a lot of kind of virtual events don't really do, because media partners can really help you reach the brides and the industry and have a clear contract of deliverables on both sides, and then make things really exciting in the lead up. So really promote various aspects of, like, if there's a very specific talk and you've got like a headline speaker or whatever, you really need to promote that. Maybe run a competition alongside, get people sharing the event, etc. But, you know, for me, as someone who's really kind of built my personal profile as a speaker now, I find that we're regurgitating a lot of the same content and it's just getting boring. Like, let's really think outside the box, and let's, you know, I want to talk about, in B2B, I want to talk about commissions. You know, I want to talk about sustainability. What do people do when they break down an event? You know, where does all that trash go and all gorgeous stuff go? You know, let's not talk about the same thing over and over again, and let's not have the same speakers over and over again. Ashanti, I've never seen you speak at any of these events, and I think you're bringing some amazing like gems of wisdom and content. I'm really glad that I saw you, and there's some other speakers that I've never seen before that this exhibition is on. So I want to applaud you for really kind of thinking outside the box with your speakers. So yeah, for me, it's just been like, you know, oh, do I want to listen to this person speak again for the 100th time? Do I want to talk about pivoting my business for the 500 millionth time? Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, be creative. I mean, I did a really small little intimate event at Bride Club. We did a virtual wedding industry iftar. So here in the UAE, obviously, Muslim country, and, you know, we celebrate iftar. And so we collaborated as, was it Ashanti or Samar said collaboration is key? We collaborated with Dish Catering, who are an amazing catering company here, to produce a really beautiful, like, gourmet Arabic meal, which was delivered to everybody's home who was attending the virtual event. And at the same time, and then we collaborated with a gifting company who provided personalized gifts, which were luggage travel tags, which said something like, "We will travel again." This was during full lockdown, which was delivered with the meals. And then we had entertainers perform during the virtual iftar in between the meals. And we were just networking and talking. And it was really, I mean, eating. But it was really nice and different. Nobody had ever done it before. And people really enjoyed it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, what Samara and Rio have basically said. If I can imagine, if maybe you don't do digital marketing or you've never done a virtual event, it can seem like a colossal task, especially when you don't want to bore people or you don't want to do the same thing over and over again. And that is why that framework I shared, like Rio, just that virtual iftar is like, that is how you get people to remember and come to your virtual event. If there's a niche there, first of all. And secondly, you created community, you collaborated with people, you know, this is what you need, that creativity to deliver meals and gifts at the same time, and yet people are principally coming together in a virtual setting. So there are no rules, basically. There aren't any rules. You do have to be willing, though, to take a risk as well.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are scared of taking risks right now outside of the traditional and things that they've done for many years.
Yeah, and I mean, you learn from the first event. If it's your first time doing it, you just learn from it, improve. It's all lessons, isn't it? No one's expecting it to be perfect. But you know, everything you learn, take that and apply it to the next one.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. I think events will need to differentiate because consumers are getting very, very discerning, and they're asking themselves, what am I incrementally getting from this event?
Yeah.
Because time is precious. There are so many events competing for the same consumers' headspace. So absolutely. I want to move on to probably what is going to be our last question, which is, and I think Ashanti set this up really well for me, by community and collaboration. But I think, in my view, I think the trick to helping revive this wedding industry is really creating communities, different sort of communities that are relevant to the wedding industry, and also collaboration. And I think this Wedding Expo is a good example of how that can also happen digitally. Could you perhaps briefly talk about how you feel you can, how each of us can play a role in really bringing this industry back, giving a comfort level to the consumers that it is okay to, host weddings, and weddings can still happen in a responsible manner, and that things it will not be the same exactly as pre-COVID, but they need not be completely stuck as well. So I'd love to have some perspective on what what you see happening with the wedding industry and what we can do to help it along.
Shall I go first?
Please go ahead.
Sure. Well, there's been a lot of talk about the new trends in the wedding industry, intimate weddings and micro weddings and personalization and sustainability, local produce, etc., etc. I think this is all, I don't really like to call them trends, because I feel that whenever the wedding industry revives and things go back to perhaps not 100% normal, we're going to go back and see large weddings, and I think, at least, that is what I feel and hear from the wedding planners around us, as that these trends are not everlasting. Virtual events probably will continue. It is because people have started embracing technology more and more, and doing more about digital marketing and virtual events, etc. This is one thing that we're probably going to see move as we move ahead. As a community, there's a lot we can collaborate on, and I think the most the thing is to try and act as a pressure group, try and act as a lobby. I think in the UK we've seen a lot of very great examples from the industry. So some of them led by Sarah, for example, and others, is that we have to come together as a community, but we have to institutionalize it. There are very, very few institutions, associations, and chambers and professional organizations in the Middle East that are relevant to the wedding industry. There is a lot of room to create stronger collaborations and by collaborations, I mean to formalize the establishments of these collaborations, and not just we get together on a virtual meeting or a conference and decide 1, 2, 3, because that's not sustainable. There's a lot that can be done to lobby the governments on the guidelines needed to revive the wedding industry. We've seen in Lebanon, for example, a case where the wedding industry was opened. There was a couple of weeks where they went back to holding weddings, and then because the guidelines were not adhered to, the government decided to stop weddings again. And now, just a few days ago, they're back. But now everybody is taking more responsibility to making sure that we adhere to the guidelines. And that's very, I think, important for the wedding industry now, is to take these guidelines seriously, because it's going to affect the whole industry, and it will take a longer time to revive and come back if, you know, the caterer or the planner and the florist and are not really taking these measures or guidelines seriously. So these are 2 points, is that we need a stronger lobby group or groups to push through and speak on behalf of the industry. And also we need the industry to collaborate, respect, and take some responsibility, own some of this responsibility to adhere to the guidelines that are being put forward by those by the governments or municipalities or venues or everybody else.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Rio, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's a subject that I'm like, it's honestly, it's, I'm with you, Samar, because, you know, there are associations, but I just don't know what they're doing, to be honest. And, you know, it's quite frustrating because you can't actually protest here in the UAE or, you know, really be very vocal. You've got to be quite careful with how you do things. And, you know, I wrote a big thing in the private group that I run, which you should join, Samar. I'll invite you. And I was just, you know, I said, guys, I said, look, the only way the industry is going to come back here in the UAE is if you adhere and respect to the law and not brag about the weddings that you're hosting illegally on social media. You know, you're putting everybody else at risk health-wise, and you're breaking the law. Yeah. And this is what the government is clamping down on. And, you know, they, like I said, recently they made an announcement and attributed a sharp rise in cases to weddings. And there are, and I can tell you through Bride Club, we have hundreds of brides that are willing to have an intimate event with 30 people and happy to. Arabic, English, Nigerian, Indian, they're happy to. They want to, but they can't, you know? So these people that keep breaking the law and bragging about it on social media are holding us back from doing that. And those small weddings are still bringing the florist business, the photographer, the makeup artist, the venue. It's still revenue, it's still business, and it's still a step forward. So I think maybe I'm digressing. I think your question is in regards to trends, right? So, I mean, I think you've got the interim trends, like what's happening now, what will happen in the near future, and then the far future. I think a lot of people are in denial, thinking that big, massive weddings will come back sooner rather than later. I honestly can't see that happening, especially here. Maybe in a couple of years. That's my honest opinion.
No, I think you make a really good point, is that it may be slightly indirect, but to basically say that the people involved must behave responsibly, and I mean the channel partners as well as the family hosting the wedding, because it has
everybody
longer impact. Yes, because
everybody,
we need to just be responsible for our actions, so that, you know, the comfort level continues to increase and the industry bounces back faster rather than slower.
Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of industry professionals messaging me going, you know, I've got an inquiry for this wedding. It's 150 people. It's next month, blah, blah, blah. Should I do it? And I'm like, no, it's illegal. What, do you want to put yourself, your business license at risk and your health? And no, I'm in the business of making money from weddings, just like everybody else. I want weddings to come back. But the more we break the law and the more the longer it's going to take for the industry to come back, and that will have a worse impact on our businesses. So adhere to the law, adhere to the protocols of your country, stick to it, and then sooner rather than later the industry will come back. If we don't, then it's like a hamster wheel. We'll just be going like this. But I think intimate weddings will be more popular. There's definitely a preference we've seen for outdoor spaces with the inquiries that we're getting. And I think people are really going to start personalizing their weddings. And I think that if you work with a wedding planners are very creative people. You know, they're very creative. They think outside the box. If you're not allowed a dance floor, they'll think of ways to bring entertainment to the table in a safe way. You know, they'll come up with amazing creative ways to ensure you still have the most amazing day, because it's very disheartening knowing that you can't dance, you can't hug your guests, you all got to wear face masks. But you know, there's if you've got a planner, or even if yourself as a bride you're creative, there are ways to make it super special and fun. And yeah,
Absolutely. Totally valid. I think this is a myth that we are also seeing is starting to bust, is that a small wedding need not be not fun wedding. You can actually have a small and a very memorable wedding and really make it special, not just for yourself, but also the guests, and make them feel quite involved, even though they are virtual. There are ways to, you mentioned some of those in a different context, but you know, by sending them a wedding meal that they can maybe have together with other guests, by sending them a personalized gift, something in line with the wedding theme, etc. There are definitely ways to make this more special and yet give business to the various sort of partners that are involved in creating that wedding experience. Shanti, would you like to add something to that before we wrap up?
No, I mean, the only thing I'd say is, you know, it's really interesting for me listening to very regional specific insights. So I really appreciate that. So I've been listening along. The only thing I would say is, and I think, again, Rio and Shamar touched upon this, is that community and collaboration between suppliers. You know, there's a real opportunity where you can to share work or really help out maybe a fellow supplier, even if, again, maybe money doesn't necessarily isn't exchanged between you, but helping out your fellow suppliers, helping out your peers in the industry itself is a really good idea, because if you know, there will be a tipping point at some point because more people are getting work. And so that really helps as well. I think having a very collaborative over competitive attitude at the moment, probably within the supplier community, is going to be helpful.
Great. Thanks very much. I just want to wrap up the panel by actually first thanking each one of you ladies, because I think that you were knowledgeable. You had a lot of innovative ideas. And I think overall very eclectic and of course very, very articulate. So I hope the audience found this as useful and interesting as I did. I actually
questions.
Yes, thanks
There's
so
some
much.
questions.
Yes, so
Kanika.
shall I just read off a couple of questions? I don't think that we have time for questions.
Oh, okay.
Like Shikha, would you?
Yes, we have actually run over time, so we really do not have time for questions. But is there anything specific?
If the audience has any questions, can they still send them in, and could those be addressed post the panel? Or
Yes, the questions are here. Do you think this impact of technology on weddings will be a long-term impact, or will weddings bounce back to what they were in the next couple of years?
I think we've sort of answered that actually through the question. I mean, I think the general view is that weddings will probably bounce back somewhat, but perhaps not to the original levels. And in order for it to happen, a lot of community and collaboration type of initiatives are required. And I think we've spoken a lot about that. Would any of the ladies like to comment on that further?
Okay, no. So there's one more question, which is Arvind says, I feel the concept of gift registry will play a huge role in weddings now. What is your take on that? I think this has also been somewhat answered.
Yeah, and I think this question perhaps may be more relevant to India, just because, you know, India is relatively new to the idea of a waste-free concept like gift registry, and definitely it is our experience that people are much more open to the idea of it, because, you know, in a situation that is fundamentally very practical, and where every consideration, every wedding planning consideration is being led by practicality. Registry makes all the sense. Plus, it gives various guests the opportunity to send in their blessings, even if they're not able to attend. So I think, yeah, the customer is definitely going to open up to not just gift registry, but more practical considerations such as virtual solutions, which also can happen very effectively, like, Ashanti mentioned. But, through the idea of virtual rooms, you can have, like, we had hosted a wedding that was a room for cousins and a room for friends and a room for his family, her family, where people are in a familiar environment, and so they are very comfortable
Perfect.
talking to each other. And I think that we spoke a lot about virtual
Yes.
events as well.
Perfect. So this was amazing. Thank you so much, ladies, for being on board. And this was definitely a very, very informative session. So honor to have you all on board. Thank you once again, and hoping to see you guys soon again.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Bye-bye.